There's a massive transformation happening right now, kind of behind the scenes, with our energy grid. It's this quiet revolution, but it's one that's going to affect every single one of us with a power connection. It's turning the whole system on its head. So today, let's pull back the curtain and see how your relationship with electricity is about to completely change. This phrase right here, the Uberization of energy, it just perfectly captures what's going on. Think about it. Just like Uber let anyone with a car become a driver, this new grid is letting anyone with, say, solar panels become a power producer. We're shifting away from a world where we're all just passive consumers to one where we are active participants.
So here's what that really looks like. For about a century, the grid was basically a one-way street, right? Giant power plants at one end, pushing electricity out to us, the consumers, at the other. Simple. But now, we're building this complex, multi-directional energy highway. Power is flowing in all directions from tons of smaller sources, and we, the consumers, are actually becoming players in the market.
This whole transformation really hinges on a brand new player in the energy game. And that new player, well, there's a good chance it could be you. It's a whole new way of thinking about what it means to be a customer.
So let's talk about the prosumer. It's a mashup of producer and consumer. This isn't just someone who pays a bill every month anymore. Thanks to stuff like rooftop solar, a prosumer is generating their own electricity, using what they need, and then selling whatever's left over right back to the grid. They're an active, producing part of the whole system.
And that right there is the million-dollar question. I mean, one home selling a tiny bit of extra solar power isn't going to change the world. But what happens when you have millions of them? How on earth do you manage all that complexity? How do you bundle up all that power so it can actually be useful?
Well, to deal with all these new small-scale producers, a totally new role was needed. A kind of middleman, a market maker for all this neighborhood power. And this is where the aggregator comes in. The easiest way to think of an aggregator is like a stockbroker, but for electricity. They step in as a mediator, and they bundle together all the small amounts of extra power from lots of different prosumers into one big, significant block. This is what allows all those tiny home power plants to play in the big league energy markets, something they could never, ever do on their own. So here's how an aggregator's job basically breaks down into 4 key steps. First, they gather up all that potential power from a whole neighborhood of prosumers. Second, they go to the big energy markets to sell it. Third, they manage the whole group day to day. And finally, and this is the most important part for the prosumers, they make sure everybody gets paid for what they contributed. Okay, so we have prosumers generating power, and we have aggregators organizing it. Once those pieces are in place, the very structure of the grid starts to evolve. We start to see these new, local, cooperative systems being built from the ground up. This is the next step in the evolution, the energy community. It's an actual legal entity where local people, both prosumers and regular consumers, band together. The main goal is to share the energy they produce among themselves first, so they can be as self-sufficient as possible. It's a huge paradigm shift, moving from just being isolated customers to becoming a collaborative community that's aiming for energy independence. But here's the twist. All of this, every transaction, every kilowatt of power shared, every smart device talking to the grid, it's all generating something else. Underneath that flow of electrons is a massive flow of information. And this invisible asset might just be the most valuable commodity of all. I mean, to give you a sense of the scale here, it's just mind-boggling. Forecasts are saying that by 2025, the world will be creating 175 zettabytes of data every year. And a huge chunk of that is going to come from the billions of connected devices, the smart meters, the sensors that make this new intelligent grid possible. But here's the catch. Raw, unorganized data isn't the real prize. It's kind of like crude oil. It needs to be refined. The real value comes when you take that flood of information, clean it up, and analyze it to find patterns and create real actionable insights. That's the moment data stops being just noise and becomes a truly valuable product. And this refined data, it represents a massive business opportunity. One forecast from Frost & Sullivan estimated that the market for just monetizing data in the power industry could be worth nearly $20 billion. That is a gigantic, largely untapped revenue stream just waiting to be claimed. So how exactly are companies planning to cash in on this digital gold rush? Let's take a look at the strategies they're developing to turn all this grid data into real revenue, or as some people in the industry are starting to call it, increasing their earnings per byte. It really boils down to 2 main approaches for pricing this data. On the one hand, you've got cost pricing. That's pretty simple. You just figure out your expenses for handling the data and tack on a profit margin. But the much savvier approach is value pricing. That's where you charge based on the real, tangible business value your data gives to a customer. Like, if your data can help another company slash its own costs for finding new clients, that's incredibly valuable, and you can price your data to reflect that benefit.
Of course, it's not some simple free-for-all. Trying to monetize energy data comes with some pretty significant hurdles. For one, the data has to be high quality. It's got to be accurate and complete. Then, companies have to navigate this incredibly complex web of privacy regulations, like the CCPA in California. And maybe most importantly, they have to make sure all this sensitive information is secure and protected from being misused.
And that question brings us right back to the heart of this entire energy revolution. We started out talking about our homes becoming tiny power plants, creating a commodity, electricity, that we can sell. But in that process, we're also creating another, maybe even more valuable commodity, our data. So the ultimate question becomes, who really owns that data, and who should get to profit from it?